9:47 p.m. settles over the valley like a lid. No moon. Heavy cloud. The rock field, broken and pale in the faint glow of night vision goggles. Wind slips through the cuts in the ridge and carries grit across the ground. A Navy SEAL element moves slow across sparse cover, spacing tight to the terrain and low to avoid silhouette. Boots test scree, and the sound of stone on stone clicks in the dark. Every breath hangs inside the mask and smells like sweat and dust. The first crack arrives from nowhere, and the team freezes. Petty Officer First Class Ryan Blake drops hard, hit by a round that finds the helmet side gap or a small opening near the side body armor plate. No one sees a muzzle. Only the sudden weight of a man going quiet. Chief Warrant Officer Mason Reed keeps the radio net clipped and clean. He calls Skywatch for close air support and gets the kind of reply that makes the night feel longer. Nearest fixed wing is 40 minutes out. No gunship. No helicopter. Ground, quick reaction force in about 1 hour. The team works angles and stays behind what little cover the rock offers. Not just concealment. Night vision goggles paint the world soft green. But the enemy reads heat with thermal sensors. Bodies become flares to anyone watching from the walls. Reed cuts chatter and orders fire discipline. Magazines stay seated. Safeties checked by touch. And rifles rest on packs while eyes count angles. A medic waits for a safe moment and the element holds. Controlling breath. Listening for the next strike. Gravel sprays near a helmet and the hiss of wind climbs the ridge. Static scratches in the ear and the dark feels heavier with every second. They can feel it now. Simple and cold. That nobody leaves this valley unless something changes. Static thins and a calm female voice slides into the net. She identifies as Staff Sergeant Emily Carter. United States Army. 300 meters northwest, with eyes on 10 coordinated firing points. The tone is level. The cadence professional. Chief Warrant Officer Mason Reed weighs the risk in a breath. An unlisted voice can wreck a net. But the team is losing ground inch by inch. He watches tracers arc from the valley walls and keeps his reply tight. Petty Officer Second Class Alex Foster checks the communications plan and shakes his head. No identification. No prior coordination. No link-up code. The silence that follows feels like a clock ticking in the dirt. Carter gives guidance that sounds like procedure, not guesswork. Kill infrared strobes. Hold fire. Stay low. Do not chase visible flashes. Assume the enemy is using multispectral sensors that exploit image intensification and thermal signatures. Reed mirrors back the instructions with proper call signs and short brevity. The net stays clean. No overlap. No storytelling. Each acknowledgement is a single beat, and then the channel clears again. Night vision goggles paint a soft field for the SEAL element. But the enemy reads heat plumes as if the team is walking with lanterns. The lesson lands without a lecture. Movement becomes a liability. Patience becomes a shield. Reed makes the call to comply and locks it in. Strobes go dark. Rifles settle. Breathing slows behind thin cover and real concealment. The element accepts that survival now rests with an unseen overwatch who sounds like she has done this before. Staff Sergeant Emily Carter lies prone on a shaded rock shelf just below the ridgeline. She keeps a low silhouette. Elbows tucked. Movement spare and deliberate. The stone is cold under her forearms, and it steadies the rifle like a quiet promise. Her rifle is a Knight's Armament SR-25, chambered in 7.62 by 51 mm. It rides a bipod. 2-stage trigger set crisp. And a suppressor, about 7 to 9 inches long, threads the muzzle. The setup is simple, proven, and easy to manage in the dark. A hybrid optic blends thermal with image intensification, so she can read texture and heat at the same time. A range card sits where her hand can find it. And her dope is confirmed for night temperature and altitude. Nothing is guessed when the air is this thin. She runs supersonic 175 grain match ammunition comparable to M118 long range. With a suppressor, the shot still has a crack. But in broken terrain at night, the source is hard to place. Supersonic is realistic beyond 200 meters and keeps energy on target across 300 to 500 meters. She parses wind in the mountain pass by watching brush and feeling the slip on her cheek. Uphill or downhill angle gets a quick correction. Then breath settles to a low count. And the press is clean. Follow through holds the reticle steady for the half second to 7/10 that a 400-meter shot takes to arrive. Thermal sees a heat plume at the muzzle, not a bright visible flash. And she treats it that way. Magazines seat with a firm tug. Never a clip. And safeties are confirmed by touch. After every shot, she shifts to a fresh firing position to avoid counterfire. Down in the valley, the team works behind night vision goggles while the enemy watches for heat. Sensor fusion is her edge because it ties both worlds together without noise. The tone of her work stays calm and exact. And that is how it earns trust. Target 1 sits on a pale limestone ledge. Rifle canted toward the pinned element below. Staff Sergeant Emily Carter settles her bipod into the rock, keeps her silhouette low, and lets the rifle breathe with her. She reads the wind in the pass, holds for the slight angle, and lets a suppressed supersonic 7.62 by 51 millimeter round go, with a time of flight near 0.6 of a second. Through the hybrid optic, the thermal signature shivers and then collapses as the heat plume fades against the stone. There is no celebration. Only a clean confirmation and a check of the backstop. She keeps it restrained and moves. She low crawls 15 to 20 meters laterally, staying below the skyline and using the ridge shadow for real concealment. Hands and knees find quiet holds, and she drags the rifle rather than lifting it into view. The new angle gives her a fresh lane without inviting counter sniper glass. Target 2 fires from a dry riverbed to the south, at roughly 320 to 350 meters. The shot blooms a brief puff of heat. A faint plume that Emily traces back along the shoulder line. She corrects for a light crosswind and a small drop in elevation and presses through a steady trigger. The second thermal shape loosens and goes still. And the valley air seems to exhale with it. Magazines stay seated. Not a clip in sight. And muzzles remain down behind cover rather than just concealment. She holds the rhythm that matters most. Shoot. Move. Reacquire. She resists the urge to chase flashes and instead watches for patterns. Then slides another body length to break the line of any watching scope. The discipline feels like a cord pulled tight and quiet. Chief Warrant Officer Mason Reed acknowledges 2 down with short, calm brevity and clears the net. The team stays low, kills movement, and lets patience replace panic while the rocks carry the wind and the last bits of static. The enemy rhythm falters, and the night begins to tilt toward the overwatch, who never raises her voice. The pair hides inside a knot of boulders, 330 to 360 meters to the west. The spotter sweeps slowly with thermal binoculars, while the shooter holds a steady lane that rakes the valley floor. Their fields overlap and punish any movement. Staff Sergeant Emily Carter settles behind her Knight's Armament SR-25 on a stable bipod. She keeps her silhouette flat, checks a light crosswind, and accounts for a slight downhill angle. Breath falls into a quiet count that steadies the reticle. Target priority is simple under stress. Blind the brain first by removing the spotter. Then take the gun that still points at the team. It is a rule that saves seconds and lives. She presses a suppressed supersonic 7.62 by 51 millimeter round and rides the follow-through. In the optic, the thermal bloom around the binocular housings loosens and fades against stone. No graphic detail. Only a calm confirmation and a fast scan for hazards. Her cheek never leaves the stock as she shifts to the shooter within 2 seconds. A small hold for wind and angle settles. The trigger breaks clean. And the second body line goes slack as the heat plume collapses. The ledge turns still. Emily slides to a nearby firing angle. Low and deliberate to avoid skyline exposure and counter sniper glass. She keeps backstop in mind and moves only as far as needed. Magazines stay seated with a firm tug. Not a clip in sight. Chief Warrant Officer Mason Reed gives proper brevity that marks 2 more down and clears the net. The seal element stays tight behind real cover instead of thin concealment. Voices are whispers of air and nothing more. The overlapping field of fire starts to open, and the pressure eases by a notch. No cheering rises with the wind. Only the steady feeling that patience is beating panic, one decision at a time. The cave is shallow and mean, cut into the face of the ridge. Most of the heat is swallowed by rock, leaving only a faint glow on an optic housing and a thin smear of warmed stone. Staff Sergeant Emily Carter lies behind a Knight's Armament, SR 25 inches 7, 62 by 51 mm with a suppressor. Her hybrid optic blends thermal and image intensification, giving her texture and temperature without switching glass. She confirms range near 500 meters and selects supersonic 175 grain match ammunition comparable to M118, long range. Supersonic keeps energy honest at this distance, while the suppressor helps hide the muzzle report in broken terrain. Wind in the pass brushes her cheek and moves a thread of dust. She dials or holds for drop, appropriate to 480 to 500 meters, then adds a small correction for a gentle uphill angle. Breath settles to a low count and the press is clean. Time of flight is roughly 0.8 of a second. Just long enough to ride the reticle and watch the cave flicker and then go still without graphic detail. She does not linger. Elbows in. She low crawls to a fresh angle, staying below the skyline and thinking about backstop and silhouette the entire way. Radio silence holds, and discipline does not slip. Magazines are checked by touch. Never a clip, and muzzles remain down behind real cover instead of thin concealment. Proper forms of address move quietly on the net when they are needed. With ranks correct and chatter cut, the valley stays hushed as the element waits for the next call. The difficult shot cracks the circle that held them. It buys a pocket of quiet air, a little space to breathe, and a sense that patience is starting to win. A brief click rides the static, and Staff Sergeant Emily Carter hears a radio key up that should not be there. She lifts a handheld RF detector, takes a rough bearing, and treats it as a direction, not a fix. The reading is thin, and she knows a single spike cannot mark a grid. 290 meters out. Dense brush holds a subtle thermal anomaly that does not match the night air. She fuses bearing, heat, and the way the ground funnels sound. Then commits. She settles behind the Knight's Armament SR 25 inches 7, 62 by 51 mm with a suppressor. Holds for a light wind, and sends one clean supersonic round that ends the hidden threat without graphic detail. 2 more shapes break discipline and try to move. The first pushes across a slope at about 300 to 320 meters. Pace quick but not sprinting. She leads by roughly 1 to 2 meters based on time of flight and estimated speed. Then anchors the shot and rides the follow-through. The second slides behind a large rock and thinks concealment is cover. A thin thermal edge leaks around the stone and gives away a sliver of shoulder. Emily places a careful round on that exposed line. Then shifts to a nearby angle to keep off the skyline and deny any counter sniper glass. Magazines are checked by touch. not a clip in sight. And call signs and ranks move on the net with calm brevity. Chief Warrant Officer Mason Reed confirms status and clears the channel. The valley seems to lower its voice as patience replaces panic, and the element breathes again. 4 quick mistakes have become 4 quiet bodies tucked back into the terrain. The pressure on the SEAL team eases notch by notch. Sensor fusion and restraint beat guesswork in the dark. The southeast ridge narrows into a tight crevice that swallows heat like a well. Staff Sergeant Emily Carter remembers this cut from earlier recon and the prone pocket she mapped in her notes. Thermal shows only blank stone, which is what she expected. She eases behind her Knight's Armament SR, 25 inches 7, 62 by 51 millimeter, and keeps her silhouette low. The suppressor weights the muzzle just enough to settle the bipod. She holds for the slight angle and trusts the memory more than the dark. A single supersonic 175 grain match round leaves on a steady press. Time in flight feels measured, not rushed. A slow thermal change spreads on the rock and then levels. No graphic detail. Only quiet confirmation. She does not linger. She slides to a new firing angle to break any glass, watching the first lane, and stays below the skyline. Backstop and silhouette matter more than speed. Target 10 refuses movement for more than 12 minutes. Then a tiny flicker touches the granite where an elbow eases against cold stone. Emily maps that micro shift to the most likely prone line and lets her breath sink to the bottom. One careful shot. Nothing extra. The shape loosens and the slope goes still. She shifts again. Because post-shot repositioning is habit, not a choice. Magazines are checked by touch. Never a clip. And muzzles rest behind real cover, not thin concealment. Radio discipline stays brief and calm as the SEAL element holds low and waits. Chief Warrant Officer Mason Reed keeps acknowledgments short and clears the net. Emily confirms 10 targets eliminated and the route open for movement. The team prepares to leave the valley with slow, deliberate steps. The tension releases without spectacle, replaced by a patient silence that feels earned. 2:30 a.m. settles over the valley like a slow breath. The rocks stop ringing and the air feels careful. The SEAL element holds defensive positions and waits for confirmation. Staff Sergeant Emily Carter comes off the ridge with her rifle slung and gear trimmed tight. Nothing dangles. Nothing shines. Only a multi-spectrum headset and a wrist interface blinking soft in the dark. Her steps place quietly between loose stones. Chief Warrant Officer Mason Reed stands to receive her with measured posture. He scans her silhouette with controlled disbelief while the team watches from cover. The net stays clean and quiet. She identifies herself with rank and name and offers a brief apology that her intelligence arrived late. Reed gives a short acknowledgement and keeps the radio discipline tight. The exchange is simple, professional, and enough. A small handshake closes the distance without ceremony. It is a seal of trust earned under pressure. No one needs more than that. The element remains alert while the corpsman and teammates perform only safe tactical combat casualty care. Movement happens when it is secure and covered. Every task follows standing procedures without drama. Terminology and address stay correct, because that is how people live through nights like this. CWO Reed uses calm brevity and clears the net when traffic is done. Staff Sergeant Carter answers in the same tone and steps back to scan the ridgeline. Shock thins into respect as operators recognize competence over ego. The silence feels different now. Not empty but stable. The valley holds still and lets them think. Carter confirms the path is clear to move and points the way with economy. The element prepares to exfil with slow, deliberate steps. Relief arrives as a steady feeling rather than a cheer. And the belief about who belongs in the fight shifts quietly into place. 8:15 a.m. at Fort Moore. The room fills with quiet boot steps and folded arms. Staff Sergeant Emily Carter stands at the podium and opens by stating that darkness is neutral and belongs to whoever understands it. She faces Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, and Army Special Forces instructors. The mix is seasoned, skeptical, and ready to be convinced. She moves past slogans and goes straight to what the valley proved. Thermal sensors can be tracked by behavior and by the shape of heat plumes, not by chasing bright flashes. She explains that careless radio use leaves electromagnetic signatures that reveal patterns and timing. Movement at the wrong moment is more dangerous than waiting when the enemy reads heat like a map. Her tone stays calm and plain. She uses range cards, recorded angles, and dope adjusted for temperature and elevation to anchor every point. Ranks and terminology stay correct because the standards matter. She is not selling gear. She is teaching a repeatable process that holds up under stress. She walks through disciplined overwatch, multi-sensor fusion, and post-shot repositioning as habits, not tricks. The ideas are simple enough to brief and sturdy enough to survive a bad night. At first the questions press hard. Then they soften. A shift rolls across the room as operators hear their own field problems answered without drama. She keeps the focus on actionable doctrine rather than war stories. The aim is fewer mistakes at night, not a louder legend. By the close, the briefing feels like a first brick. The program will carry to Quantico, Fort Liberty, and Naval Amphibious Base Coronado, where units begin to request night insertions by choice. She thanks the room and steps down without ceremony. The standard remains joint, humble, and exact, and the lesson is clear enough to travel. Staff Sergeant Emily Carter builds a program that loops classroom to range to after-action review. She keeps the flow simple, repeatable, and joint, so every service can run it the same way under pressure. She rotates on a steady schedule through Quantico, Fort Liberty, and Naval Amphibious Base Coronado. She brings a night's armament, SR-25, recorded angles, range cards, and night-adjusted dope so each block is anchored in reality. Key habits fill the syllabus in small, durable steps: shoot, move, reacquire. Then post-shot repositioning to break glass and deny pattern. Target priority is drilled until it is reflex. In a sniper pair, the spotter goes first to blind the team. Then, the shooter follows when the lane is clear. Students learn to read thermal plumes rather than chase visible flashes. They use a handheld RF detector for bearing only, never as a magic locator. And they manage strobes when the enemy is likely multispectral. Terminology stays correct because words shape actions. Magazine replaces clip. Concealment is not cover. And range procedures stay safe and standardized across the joint force. Results are reported in calm language. Within 6 months, units that adopt the full package document an approximate 70% reduction in sniper-related casualties during night missions. Written as internal reporting rather than hype. Mindset follows numbers. Platoons begin to request night insertions by choice because they understand the risks and the quiet advantages that come with discipline. She builds train-the-trainer handoffs so the program can multiply without her. Simple checklists for pre-mission and post-mission guide crews. While brief, after-action reviews lock lessons into standing operating procedures. Ranks, roles, and names stay accurate at every step. And there is no gear worship or dramatic claims. The program scales because it is humble and precise, built on habits that save lives and can be taught by any disciplined leader who cares about preparation. For 5 nights, Staff Sergeant Emily Carter tracks a high-value sniper without firing. She watches ridgelines, notes preferred wind, and marks timing and small setup rituals until the pattern feels solid. She sketches routes on a pocket card and logs angles for each perch. Dope is checked for night temperature and elevation, so the sixth night will not be a gamble. At 9:20 p.m., the target settles on a high saddle above a narrow pass. The position looks safe from a mirror ridge, which is why she does not take it. She climbs below through a steep draw and stops at roughly 290 meters. The lane is tight between two rocks, with an upward angle that most people ignore. She rests a Knight's Armament S, R 25 inches 7.62 by 51 millimeter, with a suppressor and a hybrid thermal plus image intensification optic across the bipod. A light wind crosses the saddle and touches a strand of grass. She holds for angle, checks the range one more time, and presses a single supersonic 175 grain match round, comparable to M118. Long range, the body falls back out of view, and the slope goes quiet. Radio traffic stays calm and brief, with correct call signs and ranks. There is no celebration. Only a steady scan and the patience to wait for confirmation. About 30 minutes later, the team reaches the perch and matches documents to the intelligence. The work is recorded without drama and the net clears. Terminology stays exact because words shape action. Magazine is not clip. Concealment is not cover. And United States forms of address stay correct. The lesson is clear that skill is study and patience, not luck, and that a disciplined angle from below can beat the habit of looking only to the opposite ridge. Across the joint force. Units begin treating Staff Sergeant Emily Carter's methods as standard training. The story becomes a syllabus, and night operations shift from superstition to procedure. Enemy sniper teams feel the change first. They cut back on night activity, change positions more often, keep optics off longer, and stay off obvious high ground because they fear an unseen overwatch. Instruction turns formal at Quantico, Fort Liberty, and Naval Amphibious Base Coronado. Instructors repeat her core line that darkness is neutral and teach it as a practical rule, not a slogan. Growth is measured, not hyped. Short internal reports, simple checklists, and focused after-action reviews convert habits into standing procedures that different units can copy without friction. Repeatable behaviors anchor the curriculum. Post-shot repositioning becomes automatic. Sensor fusion replaces guesswork. And radio use stays disciplined, so electromagnetic signatures do not give away timing or intent. Terminology and ranks remain exact across every brief and range block. Magazine replaces clip. Concealment is not cover. And proper forms of address keep standards clear under stress. Operators from different communities start asking for night insertions by choice. They trust the doctrine because it is calm, tested, and easy to execute when the ridge gets loud. Commanders notice the quieter outcome. Fear of the dark fades into respect for preparation. And teams carry that respect forward from planning to exfil without drama. Chief Warrant Officer Mason Reed calls her back on 3 hard nights that do not add up. Threats blur at the edges. And he wants the same quiet overwatch that turned the last valley. Staff Sergeant Emily Carter arrives with the same trimmed kit and the same calm pace. Her presence changes how the element moves. Slowing cadence, keeping profiles low, and letting patience lead. Each time she settles behind a Knight's Armament SR 25 inches 7.62 by 51 millimeter with a suppressor. One controlled engagement when needed. Then, a shift to a fresh position without fanfare. Radio brevity stays tight and professional. CWO Reed and Staff Sergeant Carter keep acknowledgments short to protect the net and the rhythm. Teams adopt small habits that hold under stress. Magazines are checked by touch. Concealment is not mistaken for cover. and night movement stays realistic and quiet. Carter turns attention away from herself and into the work. She frames results as collective, points to safe, exfil, and reserves time for a clean after-action review. Operators from different backgrounds start seeing the same truth at the same time. Competence keeps people alive at night, not ego. And respect grows in steady actions more than speeches. On the third operation, the pattern feels practiced rather than lucky. The overwatch fires once. The element adjusts. And the ridge gives up its pressure. CWO Reed notes how little needs to be said when the standards are shared. The net clears. The line moves. And the team holds its calm. The legend travels without help. But it is not the point. What matters is a repeatable discipline that any well-led team can follow when the dark turns loud. Knowledge and discipline change what the dark means. With clear habits and calm execution, a night that scares most people can turn into ground you use. The night is neutral and belongs to whoever understands it. The Valley taught practical rules that carry anywhere. Kill strobes when the enemy is likely multispectral. Do not chase visible flashes, because thermal reveals heat plumes and the eye will lie when fear is loud. Target priority matters when seconds count. In a sniper pair, take the spotter first, then the shooter when the lane opens. Shoot, move, reacquire, and reposition after each engagement so no one can glass the same angle twice. Accuracy lives in the small words and the small moves. Magazine is not clip. Concealment is not cover. And correct forms of address keep standards tight under stress. Chief Warrant Officer Mason Reed and Staff Sergeant Emily Carter model quiet professionalism without speeches. Standards evolve, and names do too. Fort Moore and Fort Liberty say that details matter. And details save lives. The same mindset belongs in every brief. From planning to exfil. Keep the tone of your own work simple and steady. Fewer words. Shorter sentences. Cleaner choices. That is how people hear you in a headset when the wind is up and the ridge is loud. Carry one memory from this story into any hard night. Patience plus preparation wins. The valley feels quieter now, like a room after a hard truth has been spoken. The team learned that small choices add up and that quiet skill can carry people through the worst minutes. They hold security and start to plan exfil with the same steady hands they used to survive. Radio calls stay short and clean. Ranks and call signs correct. Standards intact. The lesson is not loud. She did not need a raised voice. Because the work already said everything that mattered. If this story helped you feel a little less afraid of the dark, you are welcome to like, subscribe, and share. Think of it as passing along preparation and calm, not hype. We will keep telling the kinds of stories that respect United States procedures and the people who follow them. No drama for its own sake. Only the habits that save lives when the ridgeline gets noisy. Take this with you as you step off the high ground. Keep your mind clear. Keep your movements simple. And trust the work you put in before the night came.